you're at the table, so now what? I just want to say thanks to the Agile for Humanity conference and the team for inviting me to speak. I submitted this talk just because I kind of had a wild brainstorm in the night. And I said, okay, let me present. So really, thank you for creating this space of belonging and a place for us and BIPOC people to find community. So thanks so much for that. So let's start. You're at the table, so now what? So a little bit about me. I'm an Agile coach. I have over 15 years of experience. I'm currently focused on helping teams to examine themselves and how to, reflect on changing the systems that they're in. And that's pretty much it. So let's get into the talk. So what does it mean to be at the table? So when you're at the table, that is literally for any goal that you set for yourself that you want to achieve, even if it's you're starting your first role, you're entering the room or the table or that space where your voice needs to be heard. So once you have a seat at that table, what's important is to be authentic and to be able to tell your story and also create belonging as you go along your journey. So what we're going to explore is how you can be authentic, choosing to lead, and creating belonging through connectedness. Okay? So being authentic, that's a really funny kind of thing that people say all the time, and you go, what in the world are they talking about? But I mean, it's the most important role that we have in this world is to become who we're meant to be. And when we understand that, and we understand that we are driven by our values, we will focus on our why. And that is how you set your intentions about who you want to become. In terms of understanding that you are on your own personal journey, you will realize that if you're led by passion, you're not in competition with anybody. So you're not comparing and you're not competing with anyone. When you're there and you're at the table, you realize that there's room at the table for everyone. So being authentic means being able to tell your story. People remember stories, and that's how we create connections, through sharing our stories. Your experiences are unique. You're the only one who have lived that experience, and you have to be able to share that and bring people along with you on your journey. You have specific skills and talents that you're meant to share with this world. So be radical in your transparency, be vulnerable when you're telling your story, and also be curious about others. And that's how you create belonging and connectedness on your journey. So a little bit about me. This picture that you're seeing right there, that's me over 15 years ago when I was starting my IT career. If you can see by the fact that my eyes are closed, this was pre-digital camera era, where if a picture was messed up, it's just messed up and you have to live with it. So I started my IT journey, at first actually I started in the call center. And that's about when you get an opportunity, you turn up. And then I spoke to the finance guy and he said, you did ComSci, why are you in the call center? And I was like, well, it was the job that I got and I took it. And that conversation helped me to get a role in IT because I was introduced to an IT manager.
That's specific step, the time.
Okay, so from that introduction, I was able to tell my story and get an opportunity for myself. And I started in the IT department. So that's what's important about telling your story to people when you meet them and being able to, one, advocate for yourself to get those opportunities and just speaking up. So in order to be authentic, you need to develop emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is important because there's certain factors that you need to focus on to build your emotional intelligence. Things like self-awareness, focusing on your why, social skills, and empathy. So self-awareness is one of those really key things that you need to kind of reflect on and make it a goal for yourself as you go along your journey. You should be able to check in with your emotions, be aware of your emotional triggers, and that will help you to continue to tell your story when you're at the table, and also to advocate for yourself and asking for what you need along the journey. So focusing on your why, that is your purpose. Why are you here? What are you meant to do in this role? Whether it be a role in a community, in a company, focusing on your why will always get you to hold to what's there to you, focusing on your true north. Social skills. So building relationships through respect and openness and communicating with vulnerability. Those are one of the main things that will help you to get your social skills and to build them up. And social skills are really important because that's how you're going to find people to be your advocates when you're not in the room. So it's not solely about just being at the table, but it's also creating those connections with people who will tell you about those opportunities when you're not there and basically have your back. And empathy. It's the most important thing to remember is that everybody has their own journey. Everybody has their different crosses that they're bearing. And empathy is simply being there and understanding and being kind to people and knowing that you don't know the whole picture and giving people grace in difficult circumstances. So, choosing to lead, what does that mean? I know people kind of look at this and go, what do you mean choose to lead? If I'm in a particular role, I'm not a leader. But that's not true. Once you're in an organization or a system, you are a voice of that system. And it is up to you to, be clear, to communicate and be vulnerable with other people in that system. You can be a voice for those in the system who don't feel strong enough yet, or they're feeling introverted, or they don't have the confidences yet. And if you can help somebody else on their journey to find their purpose, that's what it means to choose to lead. You can become a leader who helps to change the culture, to lead with vulnerability and kindness. And that's how you're going to help every voice in the room to feel comfortable to speak up. So I love this picture because this girl just fills me with joy and seeing that shirt that says future leader. So, I mean, if we think about it, we are all our ancestors' wildest dreams. If I think about the journey that I've been on, and I think about my grandparents who were raised in Jamaica, who had a farming culture, I think they wouldn't be able to even imagine the journey that I've been on and what my career has afforded me. And that's what I mean about being a leader, thinking about that you're building on what has happened before with your ancestors and you're continuing that journey. Yes, the journey is your own, but you have family and you have friends who they're proud of you. And being a leader is simply just choosing to go, how can I help others along the way? How can I send the elevator back down to help somebody younger than me, or even somebody the same age as me who hasn't really found a way to kind of get on their path or focus on their journey as yet? That's what it means to choose to lead. So, choosing to lead and what you can do to become an engaging leader. To become an engaging leader, some of the things that you can focus on is always assuming positive intent from others. People have a lot going on in their lives. As we know, the world in the past 2 years, this pandemic, and then now we have war that has been declared. People have a lot of things that are happening. You're not aware of everybody's story unless they're ready to share it. So assume positive intent from others. If somebody hasn't kind of delivered on a timeline, show them some kindness. Be clear and open with them. So holding your judgment, that is another key factor. Holding judgment and just going, okay, let me examine this, let me have a rethink and see if there's another reason for this. And also giving constructive feedback as a leader is really, really important. That helps others to go, okay, fine, this is what was done. These are some of the ways that I can improve. And constructive feedback helps everyone in the sense that you're creating a system where people feel that they are being, should I say, helped along the way and not just being kind of berated if there is something that doesn't go well. Constructive feedback helps people to feel like they still have belonging in that system. Sanity checking your inner voice as a leader is super important. If it's not something that you would want to be said to a family member and it's not kind, then just kind of, keep that in your mind and go, yeah, I'm not going to say that. We all deserve kindness. And as a leader, practicing self-care is super important. You can't continue to just go ahead and not listen to yourself. And if you're feeling depleted, it's important to practice self-care so that you can continue being a great and engaging leader in the system that you're in. Belonging through connectedness. So, as I've mentioned throughout this talk so far, people feel a sense of belonging when you are sharing your stories as a group and you're being open and vulnerable. And that's how you create a community where people feel that you are on a collective journey together because we all understand each other's stories. There is this amazing quote by Dr. Maya Angelou that says, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you make them feel. And that's so true. I've remembered along the way on my journey in my career, the feelings that I've had in difficult meetings or somebody who just made things really difficult for me. And what I strive for is to create environments where people feel that they belong. And in order to get that belonging, you have to create connections. So how can you foster those connections? You can foster those connections by the things that I've mentioned before about being authentic and being vulnerable. So you can be authentic and vulnerable and you can share your story, but you also have to remember that you also need to be curious about others. You need to let others be able to tell you their story when they're ready. And it's a quid pro quo. It's not literally you going up always telling your story and everybody goes, oh, here goes Christina again telling her stories. Be curious about others, find out what's going on with them. And that's how you foster connectedness. And networking, that is a super, super important thing. Go to different social events, go to conferences. I know we all have busy days, but sometimes those opportunities that you get are from just simply talking to people. Because guess what? You are always showing up and telling your stories and being there. That's how you're creating connections. Attend social events. They're super, super important. And also send out virtual invites for real coffee or just virtually at the moment since we're in a pandemic. And reach out to people who are willing to help and are not threatened by people. You will find they'll accept a coffee invite if they have time. And that's pretty much it for me. So please remember, when you're at the table, show up, be authentic, and create belonging through connectedness.